Hi folks, meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana Weather, bringing you the latest forecast update here. By now, if you've checked the Facebook page, if you've been keeping up with us, you know snow is a possibility in the forecast for this weekend. Of course, it's absolute model mayhem. This should not surprise you. I've been saying it's model mayhem for a while here, and it's going to continue for a good little while the way things look. The pattern is just not conducive to great model performance, but I want to dive into the data behind what's going on and show you the scenarios, because we do have some models showing good chances for snow, and then the next model run it goes off. Well, why is it doing that? First off, let's take a look at our indices, and let's just get the pattern at hand first, and I think it might help to explain a little bit. First of all, let's take a look at the Arctic Oscillation, our friend the AO. This is dealing with cold air on the move from the north down to the south, and it deals with how far south it can go. And well, what you see here is, just take a look at that. The modeling here is just literally tanking the AO. It's off the charts here. It only goes to a -5 here, and we're down below that someplace, and we don't go above that for quite a while. The black is the control run. The green here is the mean ensemble mean. But either way, by the time that we get into later this weekend, whenever we get into a potential storm, we're running at a -4 or so here on the AO, and that's extreme. That means extreme cold weather is coming behind that. And of course, then we also take a look at our North Atlantic Oscillation. The NAO indicates a blocking pattern in the North Atlantic. When it's negative, that's a strong blocking pattern, and that's exactly what it is. It stays negative for quite a long time here. Of course, negative Arctic Oscillation indicative of those cold weather. We've got that covered as well there. We go to our PNA. A positive PNA indicates more of a dip in the jet stream over us, indicates a northwest flow. It allows that negative AO to come down. That's exactly what we see. We have that positive phase for a good while over us. And then, of course, one of the other things we look at is the EPO. When the EPO goes negative, that is conducive to all of the other indices starting to line up potentially a little bit. It stays negative for a good chunk of the month before it starts to go into the warmer positive phase again. So right now, we do have all of the indices lining up in what could be a favorable manner for that. And beyond this, of course, one of the other things that we would take a look at here is the MJO index, the Madden-Julian oscillation. What the MJO index is it deals with thunderstorm activity along the equator there in the very far western Pacific Ocean, out toward Asia. And what you've got here is kind of a cycle that it goes through every couple of months, and there are different phases that it goes through. And so what you have is, whenever it goes through phase 1 down to 8, as you see, it just kind of cycles on in this activity. That correlates to patterns whenever it's outside of the circle. That means it's a strong MJO. And that correlates to a specific effect on our weather too. And whenever you get into 7, 8, 1, and 2 during the month of January, that's a very cold phase. And let me show you that here just on the temperature composites. What it typically means, here you have phase 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 8. And you can see those are the cool phases during the month of January. Phases 4, 5, 6, and 7 are the warm phases during the month of January. So here are the warm phases. We're coming out of this warm phase right now. We're starting to leave it. We're going to an 8, 1, 2, and 3, and by the time we get to our winter storm here potential for this weekend, we're going kind of out of an 8 and into a 1. So we're certainly going to be in a strong category in that cooler. So really all the indices are working in our favor for that cooler weather. So, well, what does this mean? Well, let's actually look at the model data and show you what's going on. And as I said, a little bit of confusion right now in the modeling. Here's the United States, and of course what we're looking at here, it's a little confusing, but we'll go through it as we go here. This is looking at the surface map as it goes through, and what I want you to see is, first off, here we come to by Thursday or so, we've got some rain that's moving in, nothing big deal here. Then once that moves through, we've got another storm system that starts to develop, and watch what happens down here to our south. We get probably a break of inaction here on Saturday. By the time Sunday develops here, and this is the overnight onto Saturday night into Sunday morning, the GFS develops a pretty strong surface low down here, and it starts to track our way. And as it does, it gives us a pretty hefty snowstorm with it. What you see here, this first blue dashed line, the dark blue one, that is what we call a 540 thickness line. That's the rain-snow changeover line. Anything to the north of that, anything inside of these more light blue, aquamarine kind of lines, that is indicative of snow. And watch as this goes over us, and notice that it stays snow whenever it comes in. And so it gives us a pretty sizable storm. The euro, yesterday was on a very similar kick. The euro started this last night in its run, and you can see as I just put it on, very remarkably similar to what the GFS showed this morning. Here's the real problem, though. Take a look at what the GFS, take a look here at the euro from last night, compare it with the euro this morning, and it's radically different. Now that low is gone. What you have is in the modeling is a difference between a system phasing up and an unphased system, and it will make a big deal. So let me just show you these again. There's the GFS, and then here is the euro, and you can see again very remarkably similar. This is the GFS from this morning. This is the euro from last night. Now the euro from this morning, we'd hope for consistency. No, there it's not. I'll show you why here in a second. Let me just go ahead and show you the Canadian as well. Got a little better one here to show you of the Canadian. I wanted to show the same two there of the GFS and euro for comparison's sake, but the Canadian looking very similar. There it is. There's that low, very powerful low. It kind of moves up in a similar direction to the other two models. So we've got a little bit of good consistency between those three models, but the problem is they keep waffling back and forth. And by the way, the GFS has waffled in its afternoon run back to losing the storm too. Here's the reason why, and here's the reason why I think that's going to continue on. So let me show you what you got going on here. And folks, what we're seeing here is the jet stream in the mid layers of the atmosphere. This is your mid-level jet. We're at the 500 millibar level. This is winds around 40,000 feet or so. The colors here is indicating vorticity. This is spin in the atmosphere. So that tells us where the energy in the jet stream is. Watch as I go on to this. There's a piece of energy that's starting to move on here, and this is what will eventually bring us some rain this week as it starts to move on. This is Friday, and of course we do have some rain that's associated with this. But what I really want you to see is notice this piece of energy here, and notice this piece of energy here. Let me just highlight them. You got this piece of energy here, and what's going to happen is it's going to start to dig down this way. You got this piece of energy here that by Friday morning is coming onto the coast. It's going to dig this way and come up, and what happens is it's going to do what we call cyclogenesis and form a new low, and then that new low sort of tracks in a favorable direction for snow. And what happens is these two parts of the jet stream phase together. That's an ideal situation for snow for us. Let me show you that as I continue to put this into motion. There is that piece of energy coming onshore. By the way, notice that it's coming onshore Friday afternoon. That is key for us to note, because what it means is it's really probably going to be Friday evening's model runs before we have really great model agreement going on for Sunday. Because until this piece of energy gets sampled in our upper air network, models are going to waffle around all over the place. I'll continue to update you and show you this week, but I'm just telling you, you can expect model waffling to start showing all over the place. I think later in the week as we maybe we'll get a little bit better of a solution there. But models may end up being way different from each other, and it's simply because we don't have a very good network of observation stations in the ocean for these things, and so we have a lack of good data there. A lack of good data in the model means that we're going to have a lack of good output in the modeling. That's why you're going to see a lot of waffling, so I'm just warning you what's going on. As this comes on shore, we get it sampled into the upper air network, and that'll be a help. Look what happens, though. Now we've got, watch this, we've got this particular piece of energy diving down, providing cold air. This is the polar jet. This is the subtropical jet down here. It's going to provide the moisture to this. And watch what happens. By this time, we're Saturday at 7 p.m. I don't the surface map overlaid on this, but what happens is you've already got that low pressure. Cyclogenesis is starting, and that low pressure is going to start to track in our way. And as it does, it's got support from the upper levels, because watch what happens. By the time Sunday 7 a.m. arrives, and this is in the modeling, this is the GFS, this is the same model that gave us the heavy snow, and watch what happens. We have this piece of energy here that is moving over us. We've got the surface low, and the surface low is more located somewhere over in here, and what happens is you have this piece of energy right here that's moving over us, providing enough lift and plenty for snow. But watch this, you've got cold air coming down from Canada being cycled in behind this, and so what you have is the two branches of the jet stream phasing up together, and when they phase up together like that, you can end up with some pretty significant snows out of it. But what then happens if these don't phase up? Well, what happens is you start to lose it on some things. And so let me show you that. Let me go back to the modeling here. This is what the GFS was showing from its morning run. A nice phase system that as you move through this provides us with a decent little stretch of snow. It would start here early, overnight hours on Sunday. By the time you wake up Sunday morning, it's snowing. It's still snowing during the afternoon, and it's starting to pull away that evening. That's what the GFS was showing this morning. Go back for this afternoon though, and here's what it shows this afternoon. This afternoon run, it is a non-phase system again. Again, there's this morning, there's this afternoon. Go back to this morning and let's compare that to some prior runs. What happened overnight? A non-phase system. What happened to the last night's model run? Non-phase system, but it was a little stronger low, and what this one does is it tracks it a little too far to the south. So right now the model's sort of all over the place. Again, you can expect this through the week. What I have a feeling is going to happen though is what we're going to see is this may be just a little bit too far to the east. Even on this run for the GFS, this would be ideal for some snow, but I fear it may be a little bit too far to the east. In fact, I think as we get closer to time, I would not be surprised to see the low really take more of a track from being down in here and more of a cutter like this. And what I would have a suspicion on here is that really anywhere in kind of this circle right in here, and that would include us as well. I'm not drawing this very well, but anywhere in this area I think could be at risk for some snows with this. So we're going to have to watch this one carefully to see how far of a track it really does. And the models are going to show a good storm one run, and they're going to lose it the next run. And it's all because of that pattern. It's not seeing the jet stream very well. Is it going to phase up or not? And again, until those pieces of energy are fully sampled in our upper air network, this is pretty much what you're going to see happen. Now, let me show you the difference in snowfall accumulations. What does it matter whether we have a phase system or not? This is the GFS run for this afternoon, what it did. And notice what happens here. A non-phase system brings us next to no snow at all across the area. Really, none for most of us. We get a phase system, and it does this, and we have hefty amounts of snow across the area. Now, I thought about should I even show this or not because I don't want to hype something up, but I do want to be realistic and show you that there is the potential for this, but I don't want to put it as just a post out there on Facebook and not really explain it very well. Again, folks, will this happen? Well, it would in an ideal setup with a phased jet stream and just the exact track, yes, it could certainly happen, but there's a lot to work out as to whether that will or not. By the way, you remember the Canadian lended support to that and looked very similar to that, a phased look on it as well. This is what the Canadian gave, and the Canadian gave us actually a heavier dose of snow with this. So the potential is there that we could have a pretty decent sized storm system, but everything is going to have to line up just absolutely perfect in order for it to happen. And right now it's just a little too far out to know. It's something that we're going to have to watch as we go throughout the week. The Euro, by the way, when it looked very similar to this, did give us some snow as well. It was more of some minor totals there. The yellow starts here at 1 inch, and then you got 2, 3, and 4 inches here. So it was kind of 1 to 4 around the area, which is a little bit, but is certainly not as much as what you're seeing on, say, the GFS or the Canadian. Either way, it does look like we have the potential for some snow. It just is going to be, at this point, how much, the way things look. I do think there is a chance. At the worst out of this, as the system moves through, we may end up with a few flurries or a light coating out of this. At the best, and it is certainly a real possibility, we could end up with a few inches out of this. So again, something that we're going to have to track. And of course, the story behind this, what's really going to be important is the cold air that comes behind it. Because let me go back to here, and you remember again, look at the cold air that's coming down here from this system, and watch what happens as the system passes off behind it. This really bitterly cold comes down on us with this piece of energy, and that's going to provide, by the time you come in on Monday, with some very, very, very cold temperatures. In fact, if the GFS is right, look at this. Look what happens. If the model run that gives us a pretty significant amount of snowfall happens, we could be talking single digits to near 10 degrees around the area as you wake up Monday morning. If, though, the model run is right that doesn't have that significant snow accumulation and gives us nothing to a very light trace, it's still very cold. It's upper teens for us to near 20 around the area. Either way, that's some very cold air that's working in. And by the way, if the Canadian is right, and the Canadian has been very good at nailing very strongly these Arctic air intrusions, it takes us below zero with that heavy snowpack. Now, I'm not saying we're going below zero by the time you wake up next Monday morning. It is an option on the table here in the modeling. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen, but it's something that we've got to watch closely, because of course if we get this drastic kind of snow and air coming in, that could have some very strong impacts on us for next week. So either way, folks, we're into a very active forecasting period. Just keep it tuned here to Southern Indiana weather as we go on, because this is not going to be easy to forecast. Do these systems marry up and phase together, or do these systems take apart? Only time will tell, folks, and that's only going to be known really as we get a little bit closer to time. That is it for this video update, folks. Beyond that, a nice little small warm up this week. Beyond that, though, we get into this coming weekend, we got some problems. We'll work it out, and of course more videos will come as we head later into the week. That's it for now, folks. Take care.